Amrit and Karin, the floor is
Hi,
yours.
Karin.
Hi, Amrit.
Jens. Thank you very much, Jens, for your introduction, and very welcome, Karin, to our show today. And really, really honored to have you to share a lot about what is timely about talents. But before we do, could you kindly introduce yourself and do a work experience for the audience, for the participants?
Yes, sure. I'm Karin Björkman. I'm Swedish national, but I've been living abroad for many, many years. I ended up in the Netherlands because of love and worked there. And that's where I started also my career within the recruitment, as I am very interested in people and the movement of people. And that is combined then with the recruitment. There I worked with the international recruitment for about 20 years, and 4 years ago I got the opportunity to take the business to Sweden. So I'm now doing basically the same, but in Sweden. As a person, open-minded, love interacting with people, and happily married and a mother of 2 sons.
Great, nice to know. Are you representing, when you're recruiting, are you representing the employer or the employee when you're doing your recruitment assignments?
Yeah, so that's so fantastic about the business I'm in, and what I'm able to do is representing both parts, actually. So I'm in between and being the intermediary, and seeing that the needs of the clients is being fulfilled as well as the candidate. So I represent both.
Good. So then, in your role, then being representing both, how do you affect the equal opportunity and inclusion in the workplace in your recruitment process?
Yeah, so we think it's very important to get to know our clients and candidates. And so with open and transparent communication, we talk about their needs. And if we see that they might be in need of inclusion and diversity, we redirect them and challenge them on the part in order to get them to see the added value of this. And we can advise them on tools and directions on where to go, as this is so important in order to increase business.
But when you put forward a resume, do you actually then put in some of those sensitive information that could actually be a pivoting point of a certain bias?
Yeah, so we follow the regulations on the GDPR there, of course, and also there are some topics that is while expressing certain topics like gender and religion, etc. That's basically discrimination, and I think it's European standard. So and that shouldn't really matter either, depending on the position, of course. But when we do recruit, we try to look at the skill sets that a client needs, and skill sets and what kind of personality that would fit in. And then it doesn't really matter if what gender or what religion, for example. So we basically take away all those personal details. I do believe in still revealing the name, because that's a part of the personality that someone is going to hire.
So, in the past, when you did your recruitments and comparing to now, what are the challenges that you're seeing trending that employers are facing in this current situation?
Yes, so what a challenge for a company now is then, of course, if first of all, retain their staff because of the COVID-19 situation, and when they do need to recruit, there is loads of super talents on the market available now, and it's of course very challenging in finding the right one there. So that's a challenge that I do see, by finding the right talent might be the challenge.
So are there any success cases of employers that have managed to retain their staff in a way that would have otherwise have been making them redundant or furloughs?
So if I look to Sweden, I think also in many other countries in the world, the government has come to support companies by decreasing taxes and employment costs, etc. And Sweden, we've had a scheme that you could put people on a lower hourly work week, which means that the candidates or the employees needed to hand in some salary, but in return, the companies gained some fundings in order to sort of survive. That has saved a lot of jobs, of course, but it has also been industries that has sort of died out. But I must say I'm impressed about the innovation that has taken place and the adaptability of a lot of companies. For example, we have a major airline here in Sweden that they took all their staff who has a healthcare education within their program. They shifted over to help the healthcare, for example. So that is then also a way to retain the staff, but then you have them doing something else. And being innovative and adaptable, and that's something that I've seen. Yes.
And oftentimes I find that a lot of them are actually working from home with flexible work hours. Of course, that would impinge somewhat into the efficiencies. But how has that actually psychologically impacted employees and employer relationships in this sort of new setting?
Yeah, I think from the beginning it was very much like, okay, we all need to do this. So there was no doubt on why we should do it. It's just, okay, it's just a necessity to do this. So let's do this together. And for some people, it's a lot more convenient to work from home. I mean, there's less travel, maybe less stress when fitting in the work and the life balance agenda. So for some people it has worked out very well, and for some less, because they're very social and they really want the interaction of the colleagues, etc. And also a lot of branches has not been able to do the work of home. I mean, the people working in the hospital or daycare centers, schools have been open in Sweden. So yeah, that was no option in working from home. But if we look into the business side, where actually office jobs has been forced to do the work, out of home thing, I think that it has grown people together. I mean, it has strengthened the relationship between the customers, the employees and the employers, because they, I mean, it's when you're in the office and you have something, you can just walk in and say, oh, hello, or you see someone's body language if someone doesn't feel good, etc. That you can't do unless you do reach out and communicate with your staff, and the other way around. As an employee, you reach out to your manager or employer to really have an open communication on what is going on. And I think that has helped, or I see that at least at our clients that I've been spoken to, that they have had this setup that, okay, well, we need to have an open communication. We schedule one-on-ones and really be there for each other and have that open communication.
So is there any sort of when talking about government and involvements, are there changes in employment regulations going forward? Because I think Sweden's got and I think a lot of Europe countries have a lot of protections to their employees. And
yes.
So it becomes a shorter runway for the employers, especially when there is, maybe some subsidies that governments do have. But of course, there's always that challenge of that tipping point balance between, sort of income and money in, money out. So in terms of government policies on ordinances for the employment regulations, how is that sort of playing out?
Yeah, so looking to the employment law in Sweden, it dates back in the 70s. So it's very much very protective to the employees and also the unions, etc. So employers or companies who really need to get rid of staff in terms of decrease of business, it has been very difficult. So there are, it's up on the political agenda to look into, okay, how can we revise the law to make it more flexible? And I think, looking to the today's job market, it needs to be done because yeah, it's not today's standard to stay 15, 20 years in a position. We need have some more movement on the job markets.
So if the law is amended and the result of this change enables companies to be able to not have to retain somebody for that long, how do you think it would be affecting their employment mandates, and how would it be for you in the recruitment process? What would you see as the trends?
Yeah, so I mean, some movement on the job market is always good. I think. I think when there's so much talent on the market, I mean, when Corona hit us in March, I mean, all the recruitment via external resources like us was frozen. I mean, that's I think for many people. So, but I've been very positive in the way that I think that. Because of so much talent on the market now, the employers needs a filter. What we as a professional partner in this, we can really be a filter in getting them the talents that they need. I see that hopefully will be a trend which will be beneficial.
But would it be more likely, because obviously I'm just curious to know, I mean, are companies more whimsically hiring back if policies would actually be flexing workflows? Do they have contract work, or do they have permanent positions? So what, you know, as if I was to look for a job, what would it be that I would have to, you know, sort of as an employer have to consider when it comes to the recruitment process?
Yeah, so how the employment law looks like now, it's very strict. So it's a 6-month probation time, which is positive, but then you get a contract, a permanent contract. Good, but in this situation, maybe an employer will think twice in order to hire someone, because they get stuck with that person. I mean, it sounds very negative, but if there's some more flexibility in that, I think companies will be more out of hiring people and tightening them up to them. Absolutely.
So if we are to look at, you know, moving forward, and if it's the new norm to get the right people on board, what would you say would be the types of things that companies would now look for, having to sort of, what are the key ingredients, and what would be their sort of, I think, their new pillars of success? Yeah,
so in this movement of working from home, it has a certain skill set has arisen that people do need to have, and it's I mean, they need to be have self-awareness, be flexible and adaptive. I think tech savviness is also very important in order to move with the flow, because everything is more or less digitalizing now. So if you can move with that flow, you are an attractive candidate for the employers, and I think that's also what the employers will be looking for. Yeah, I know we talked about that also on. Before, people wanted to have like nice people in the office, and they should be, you know, happy and fancy and communicative, etc. And someone asked me, like, okay, well, does EQ not play a big role now then when we're working all with the digital, because we're not really seeing each other or see that affection? But I think that's even more important now to as a manager to see through the digital channels and see through the communication that you set up, that what are the needs of my employees, how are they feeling, and etc. So I think the combination of being communicative, open and transparent, and have the EQ and empathy will also be very important in the future.
And it must be sort of really hard, though, with so much talent. If for a startup, how do you sort of go about seeing what is needed, and how, what, you know, when you're giving guidance to an employer or a startup community, what would be the types of assistance do you offer to the startups in terms of priorities of hire if they've got a short runway?
Yeah, so I think, yeah, for startup or any organization that is hiring, but mainly then for startups, of course, I think you need to make a roadmap on where are you and where do you want to go, where are you in the funding state. I mean, I would always advise if you do have funding and you want to recruit, do take external help from professionals, because the people that you take in from the beginning is going to build your company culture. Because people do build the culture within the company. So if you begin with yourself and you hire the next one who is the same as you, etc., etc. There is also a very important topic there is to look at the inclusion and diversity from the very start, and that's what Emily also was going to highlight also with the equality check there, because the diversity is also innovation to the key to innovation. So looking to there is to, okay, what fundings do you have? Where are you? Where do you want to go? Are you a tech company and you have a super tech idea? Yeah, maybe you want to develop that, and your first hire is going to be a CTO, for example, or you have a FMCG product that needs to be pushed out on the market. Now, maybe then you need a sales manager to start with, for example. So it all depends on where you are. But I think it's very important to put up a roadmap to say, okay, where are we and where do we want to go, and what kind of company do we want to build? What's our core values and the company culture that we want to build.
And I guess that now with a lot more of the digital and work from home, it means that you can expand the borders and find talent overseas, right? And if that was the case, then how would it be to manage a team effectively with employees from different parts of the world? You know.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, I would say if everyone's going to start or continue working from home, it doesn't really matter where you live now, I would say. Okay, if you need to come into the office, of course it's easier if you live around the corner or at least in the same city. But having remote workers, and I think that's where we need to adjust to that this will be the new standard. I mean, the office environment is not going to be the same in the new. The office is going to be just a meeting place where you do come together once in a while, but not that daily office work. And in that sense, yes, you can expand your talent pool by looking for the right skill set with someone maybe living outside your own country.
But would that mean in terms of for the employers about things about thinking about like salary taxes or annual leaves or public holidays or conveying the culture across culture? There would be different considerations, and how would they skirt around those things as part of the important peripherals?
Yeah, I mean there are loads of companies that are working on payrolling, for example. But basically you can live in one country and work for another country. Okay, it's a bit of extra work there with the taxes and where you pay the taxes, etc. But these are administrational things that could be solved in a quite easy manner if someone wants to. I know one company who has, I think they have 50 employees, but they live in 50 different countries, and in that way they can also offer services to clients in 15 different countries, and not just having an office here and work towards the different markets, but they spread their chances in increasing business in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely, because it also helps them to expand and touch base with the different markets, and designs could also be different because you have different preferences in certain countries. So
exactly.
That's also another.
And I mean, and if you're a sales-driven organization, you would understand your clients better, because again, here you have diversity to think of and inclusion. If you have a diverse workforce, you can expand your business to a diverse client base, sort of.
Are there ways for candidates that are looking to get into a company? What would you have them look at for themselves in terms of being able to increase their probabilities of employability in this current day market? Especially, it's very competitive, so everybody's vying for one position. So how would you help them, sort of give them key points that they need to think about?
Yeah, I think it's first of all, I think it's very important to be adaptable and flexible. I mean, your dream job might not be out there because maybe the whole sector has disappeared because of Corona, or that the competition is very high. I think to be competitive on the market, as I said, the self-awareness, the ability, flexibility, and to look into, okay, do like a self-scanning, okay, what do I have and what do I need? Because maybe your education is outdated to what is needed today. So do a self-scan on okay, where do I need to brush up my skills? What systems are in need at the moment, or what markets could be applicable to my skills, etc. There are a lot of online tools to use for that. But I think, yeah, the self-awareness and the self-scan on looking to, okay, what can I do? What do I want to do? And what's out there, and how do I need to adjust to what is needed?
I also think that I would add to that is that I would say that, you know, people that know you could actually then also, you could always ask a group of people that you know, what are the talents or what are the skill sets that you have, because sometimes we live that all day, but we don't recognize it as being a skill. And sometimes it's actually quite important. I mean, I know an accountant who actually had to just upskill to learn an electronic version of software, then to be able to just, I mean, that was the only gap they needed to become employable again. So it's just a good way to then also use what you have, but just, you know, having to tweak it a little bit rather than reinvent yourself completely.
Exactly.
So I think that it's a good way to actually start to, you know, reassess. And also I do a reverse engineering. I think I would say look at what's out there and then go back and see what you have, and then just fill in the gaps for what you're aspiring for that job, and see how you can actually fit that. In terms of the preparations for an interview on a digital remote method, what would you recommend in terms of the preparation, the pre-prep and post-prep, during?
Yeah, so first of all, get the technical things set up right, of course, that you know that you're visible. I think you must see it as it would have been a face-to-face meeting. So I mean, I would say dress up and like as if you would meet someone in person, even if it's only digitally. Make sure that I had to adjust my screen that you see my face, for example, how you look into the camera, how the light is in. And yes, I'm aware of that. Not everyone is able to have a spare room in order to sit very quietly, etc. But depending on what kind of meeting it is, and if it's, now when everyone was needed to work from home, it was more of a, it was okay to see like screaming kids in the background, or you know, the dog barking or whatever, you know, it's fine. But however, if you should really have an interview for a job, make sure you sit in this quiet place and see it as if it is a real job interview, face to face. And prepare yourself, and make sure that the technical instructions are all fulfilled, and that you're on time, and etc. So as if it was a normal interview.
I'd say also, you know, it's really hard to get the image or the expressions out there, and far more engagement is needed, and eye contact, trying to get to,
I know that's really weird.
Yeah, so I mean, like the facial expressions and stuff like that, that's, you know, I think even more so because there's sort of this there's no other peripheral distractions, so you're just looking at the screen at that one person, right? So it must be really like daunting now.
Because I look at you, but I should look at in the camera. Yeah, that's true. Maybe one needs to put an image up on the camera and look like this is where I looked at, but then I can't see your expression. So But
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm
it's the same
challenged
for
too
everyone.
because I've got a screen, but my camera is not actually aligned to my screen, so it may not look like I'm having eye contact with you all the
Yeah,
time. So this
yeah,
is another thing, and I think when it comes to first impressions, it takes such a short span of
yeah,
time for
yeah,
an interviewer to actually make a judgment on you, even if it is in a digital way. So I
yeah,
also think that maybe record yourself, see how you look, and then
yeah,
play it back.
yeah,
That's another way to sort of see, and then check your sound quality or call a friend and get that sort of the sound right as well.
yeah.
If there is a choice for a candidate to have either to be an employee or a remote contract staff, what's the kind of considerations? What would be your recommendation, or what would they need to think about in terms of course, an employee would make the somewhat a little bit more stable, but of course, there's always two sides of a coin. So could you give insight to some of the attributes for both, and then have what would it be that the candidate has to ponder themselves when looking?
Yeah, it is a difficult question to answer because it all depends on the personal situation of a candidate, and also the situation within a company. But I think it's important to be flexible. I mean, yes, if you need a certain amount of money in order to be able to pay your rent, etc., yeah, then you might to only look at those opportunities. But if you're open to temp working or contract working or even being an employee, don't close any doors just because of that, because there might not be a second chance. So I would my advice here would be flexible. However, don't take a job just to take a job. I mean, it needs to feel fine and be suitable, but one cannot be too picky. And I think also employers needs to see also that of course everyone wants the ones with the 10 out of 10 scores on the setup requirements, but yeah, flexibility from both sides, I would say.
Just as we're wrapping up now, I just wanted to know what has been the key to your success in your career?
Oh yeah, that's also a difficult question to answer. I actually had to ask my friend about that, and I think I do agree with her. I do like people. I'm genuinely interested in people and what moves the people. So for me, seeing the people and having chosen the business I'm in, recruitment, is yeah, to generally see people and connect people, and yeah, I tend also to put people in front of, yeah, to take people's needs in front of my own needs sometimes also. It has been successful many times, but they also say do what you love and love what you do, and that's what I've found in my business, and I think that's the key to success.
Fabulous, fabulous. Thank you very much. Okay, so now I've got 2 minutes left on this, and I think that Emily would be. Are we sliding into Emily, Jens?
Yes, we're
do that?
gonna wrap up the move it to Emily, but maybe you wanna, if you have a last question before that, Amrit.
Well, I do actually. I'm curious to know. Are there when it comes to different time zones, and there is actually the okay, so if it is that people are actually going to be doing contract work, one of the things that I find frustrating is that sometimes there's this messaging, okay, the mission and the vision of a company isn't actually always inculcated into an employee, and it filters to a consumer like me. Because
Yeah,
then I don't feel, I can see that even with hospitality, with such high turnover, all of a sudden there seems to be a little bit of a coldness or a
yeah,
distance. And it
yeah,
wasn't that which was before, there was a little bit more of that pride and all that. And getting into this contract work mode of operandi and those candidates can actually affect the client. I mean, to me, I feel that. And so how can companies, if it was that becomes more that people actually are going to be doing contract work, how do you communicate effectively the culture of a company so that it's actually even if it was a short span of time, or be it 6 months to 12 months, it must be a real challenge for employers for that to resonate and commit and communicate that. What would be your take on that?
Yeah, so first of all, even if you're a contract worker, you should be considered as an employee. So it's not a difference between oh, you're external, I'm internal, and yeah, you don't live our values. So it should be the same. So it is as important to communicate the core values of the company to the contractors from day one. So communication is key, having the core values up on front and as from day one, and also do a checkup on these that people do live the values. I think that's very important. And I mean, if you are appreciated and living the values of a company, you as an employee will show that to the clients as well. So yeah.
Onboarding videos or things like that, maybe, you know, might be also a way to
getting the message out and make sure it's clear. I mean, it shouldn't be like dictating, but it's one should, you know, you have to see it like you're a family in that sense. I mean, get on board with, well, let's do this together. And I think with this online onboarding and this what is happening, people tend to give a little extra to make it right, because they are aware of, okay, we need to succeed in this, so let's make it a success.
Also, there's a chance that the contract worker can become extended out for
absolutely
a full-time employee. So it's good for long-term, not being myopic, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Great. So really lovely. Thank you very much. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. No, and also, I mean, communication is key. I mean, if something's wrong, just say it. I mean, and okay, not always easy, but I think that's also a takeaway. Open and transparent communication, and schedule one-on-ones, and have the inclusive workforce.
Yeah, I think communication is a really tricky one, because you really need to be able to deliver a message on a silver platter, because it's often it can be sort of, you know, if the people are actually on the defensive, or there's a little bit of that delivery tone, if you could call it that, and that could actually be taken the wrong way. So I think there's an art to that too. So there's a couple of other skill sets and training on those type of
that
things,
could be. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, very, very nice to have you explain a little bit more about the talent and the current situation. And hopefully there's been some insight to both the employer and the employees on moving on with their pursuits. So we'll now take it on to Emily.
So let's go to Norway.
Thank you, Karin and Amrit, for the fireside chat. Before moving to Emily, I can see there's a lot of questions, or there are a lot of people posting in the chat. And what I will do is I will keep this meeting open after the networking so that you can go back into the chat and look. There are two people, Said, who's looking for people, and Teresa is also looking for people.